from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased joining me, Mary Borysova. Mary, thank you very much for being here with me on the show today. The way I love to do it is I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves. So give us a little bit more a background about you, your journey, and what you're currently up to, and then we take the discussion from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mehmet, for having me, for inviting to your wonderful podcast. My name is Mary, and I'm a product designer working specifically in healthcare. So for the past 7+ years, I've been working with healthcare companies and startups, helping them create innovative products. So that's my passion. That's my job. That's what I do every single day. And I think I'm quite blessed to be able to say that. That every single person probably found this a source of inspiration and passion and joy. So yeah, I would say I'm also enthusiast of healthcare innovation in general, outside of my work as well. So I do love trying new healthcare devices, and thank God there are so many. Every single day we have new healthcare wearables. So yeah, from all of the sides, from business side, from consumer side, from just normal user side, I've tried all aspects of healthcare, and yeah, I love it.
Cool. So maybe it's like a kind of a traditional question, but let me ask you, Mary, like how product design differ in healthcare rather than maybe any other field?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because quite often you would say product design, and we are speaking here about software design. So just to understand it better, it might be clinical software. Let's imagine you
Mhm.
go to the hospital and your doctor is using some software to log your symptoms. For example, you may have some blood work or any other analysis, and your data is logged somewhere. This software may be designed by my team, so by my design studio. Also, applications that you are using for healthcare, let's say Google Health, that be it anything that is related in some way to health, that would be clinical software. So in this case, when we are speaking about product design in healthcare, we'll be talking only about user experience, so software design. And how it is different, I would say many people would argue that if you're a great designer, you'll be able to design anything, right? So the process is the same. You understand the problem well enough to be able to come up with a good solution. And then you test it till you are sure that the solution is good enough. So technically, it's all simple, right? The same components or the same design process across all of the industries. The only thing is that specifically in healthcare, I would say the issue that quite often we forget about the privacy concerns and accessibility if you are designing for nations.
Mhm.
Right. So designing for seniors will be very different than designing for TikTok app or even Fitbit, right? Same about security concerns. Quite often, we cannot use the data that you normally would be able to use in the app, the
Right.
private data of the user. So that limits us a lot. When we are talking about AI, for example, right now I have many friends in huge corporations, in the biggest companies like Flo Health, for example, the biggest female health app in the world. And they cannot really use the data that you enter because of the privacy concerns. So they cannot fully develop the technology because of this limitation. Certainly with time, we'll be able to find ways around it, but still as a designer, probably you will notice that there are many more limitations from legal standpoint and also from personality one.
Right. And like it's very true that healthcare, and I talk to a lot of even founders in the healthcare industry, and some CTOs as well. And like it's not an easy, I would say, path to choose, because all the aspect that you mentioned, Mary. Now, like, you mentioned something about the difference in designing something for like maybe Gen Z's kind of application, and designing for senior people who gonna use. So what are like some of the strategies that can make a healthcare software, whether it's an app or just any app, addictive and effective in your opinion?
I think healthcare apps, we are quite lucky here because technically everything that we are doing it for the human, for their health, right? So when we are speaking about social media or any other sort of app, if you say addictive, people will be just freaking out because nobody wants the app to be addictive, right? So we
Right.
want to spend as much time away from it, which helps it a bit different because here we are optimizing for some sort of positive addiction, right? So we want the user to log their steps or to do their fitness activities every single day. So it must be addictive in a way, not in a manipulative way, as
Hmm.
usual. It's like 90% of the market would say it's probably not for the human, but against really. And in our case, we're optimizing for attention and engagement long term for the sake of somebody's health, mental health, physical health, any sort of improvement in physical and mental body. So speaking of that, the feature that would probably help you design an app that would be addictive. There are a few. I would probably start with ones that are the most interesting ones in upcoming innovation in AI. That would be personalization.
Hmm.
Like you probably noticed, AI can analyze a lot of data instantly. And previously, when you were entering a lot of data, what you could get was just a chart, right? And chart is not very actionable. Yes, I can take a look at how like the number of steps fluctuated. That's very nice to see, but so what? It's not really actionable and it's not very motivating for me to keep going. It's
Right.
nice, it's visual, right? So it's better than nothing, certainly. But with our very, very short attention spans right now, to decipher this chart, to really make sense of the data, it takes so much time, right? And nobody has this time because there are TikToks that are like 10 seconds long. And I don't have 10 seconds to scroll through my data to understand what's happening, right? Then there must be a way to transfer the knowledge that the app has now to the user in 2-3 seconds. And how do we do that? So, first of all, personalization of it, it's summarization of the data that the user has entered or we collected using the variable, and at the same time, it's engagement, so chatbots. Many applications, many modern applications are using these days the chatbots, coaches, you may say, right?
Hmm.
AI therapist, AI coach, AI, I don't know, helper. So what you are doing is you are asking them a question. For example, I'm feeling not very well today. Should I uh, go to the gym or should I maybe meditate or do yoga? Or sorry, so it's a very, very simple example, honestly. But to understand how they will guide us based on the data, for example, our pulse, heart rate, anything that they can access based on the variable, they will be using it to understand how stressed out we are right now, how bad it is compared to the previous days, how well we were recovering previously. And based on all of this massive data, which was previously impossible to really analyze, they will give you a recommendation. Let's say, it seems like today you're really struggling. You are under stress, probably based on your heart rate, not necessarily what you have inputted there that you're feeling sad. No, based on real metrics. And based on that, it will tell you maybe it's better for you to go for a walk. Don't go to the gym because you will be even more stressed out. You will not be able to sleep. And they also know your sleep patterns. So go to bed at 9 p.m., for example, and wake up at 6, because that's your optimal cycle based on your previous 90 days, right?
Mhm.
So that is a lot more interesting for you as a user because you understand it's not generic.
Right.
And if your coach tells you to do this, probably you will, compared to just, well, it feels like you made 10 more steps today. Good job. That's not necessarily the most interesting data, right? So personalization, that would be the first pattern, which increases engagement a lot. And secondly, I would say gamification, but it has been on the market for a while. If you think of the brightest examples of gamification, you think of education and Duolingo, right?
Right.
So it has been here for a long, long time. It's just that right now we are trying to incorporate health applications more and more, and maybe just discover the nuance around how this will affect the user better, right? So it's not just giving them the badge for achieving something, but having more nuanced approach and really tweaking the message in a way that is truly engaging for the specific user. So it's not generic. It might be based on the data that they have entered, for example, their specific goals or any things that really motivates them personally, any date that they are, for example, preparing in terms of, I don't know, dieting. Maybe they have wedding or some other reason, and that will motivate them significantly better than just saying you have 3 days to go to lose 5 kilos, right? So something that will be a lot more useful for user, and at the same time for the application owner, for founder, it will obviously improve the metrics of
Cool.
the application, so it's more addictive in a way. Yes.
Yeah, so these are like all cool strategies. So you mentioned a couple of other things. Now, also I know like you touch on the AI in the design, um, and from software perspective. But what you have seen some good use cases is, Mary, when it comes to design for physical medical devices.
Yeah, speaking of physical medical devices, it's not my domain. That's why I would probably shy away from expressing any opinions on that because healthcare is insanely huge, right? So you cannot really express any opinion on medical side of it, life sciences, if you are not working there, right? Just like people in life sciences will probably have nothing to say about application design or software design. That's why healthcare in general is, yes, health innovation. There are so many sub niches. And within the sub niches, there are even smaller niches. So to really know what you're talking about, I think you have to hire a specialist here. So physical products, most probably, I would not risk saying anything about that topic.
Completely fine. Completely fine. Now, like some of the things which you also touched on, but maybe just if you can give us some examples. Like I had some people who shared their opinions about how AI can shape, for example, how people can get health care in some underserved areas. Like what kind of innovations that maybe, of course, AI would be part of it, that can let people have the access to the healthcare resources that they deserve, if especially they are in remote areas or underserved areas, or maybe in developing countries and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent question because what we are speaking about when we are speaking about innovation is really two things. First of all, accessibility. Accessibility in terms of the location, and secondly, accessibility in terms of the price. Because obviously, human intervention will always be more expensive, or almost always will be more expensive than automation that human has designed and developed, right? So here we are battling against obviously super high prices for health services, especially in the US, and obviously the huge amount of space that is not covered by any sort of services, and especially not covered by any specialized services. For example, if you have like, I don't know, physiological issues or like really, really you need a neuro specialist, it will be extremely hard to find one, and you will have to travel a lot just to see a specialist. So we are solving with the health innovation list too. And just to give you probably few interesting examples, I was working
Sure.
on quite an interesting product, which helps people in remote areas in Australia, starting from Australia, scan their feet using 3D scanner in their phone to assess the feet and assess the issues that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So you may be walking in front of the camera or just taking photos, and that is enough already for the software to assess which issues you have. And then based on that, the new orthotic can be created, which will be custom to you. And then it will be produced on the factory and shipped to you where you are. Obviously, right now, it's impossible to do this 100% an automated fashion. You must have a doctor who will review these results, right? But compared to manual review or even traveling to see the doctor, then traveling again to get the orthotic, maybe traveling again because something went wrong, it saves a lot of time. And obviously, it makes the price for the orthotic significantly low. Because obviously, in this case, we are saving so much time of the specialist, of the doctor, whose services are very valuable indeed, and they are quite expensive as well. So in this case, it's 2-in-1, so more accessible in terms of the location and for the price. And certainly there are many, many other examples, even in terms of digital therapeutics. So anything that helps us solve our problems using the internet, and it is possible. There are multiple physical devices which help you to assess something at home. For example, you can use this device together with your doctor as a camera, for example, to check your throat or check your ear, anything, right? So you can use a device that you purchased previously. They will be looking and using the camera, getting the data, and wherever they are, they will be able to get this data and make sure that they are prescribing something correctly. And then when the next time to the doctor comes, again, you're saving so much time and so much money by this. And same about just normal digital consults, countless digital consults just to get the meds that you were already prescribed previously, because you do need to have this return visits as well, unfortunately, so you need to pay for them. So yeah, it's by and large, I think it's a huge industry that will be digitized and automated.
Mm-hmm.
And it is already in such a shape that we are seeing the huge benefits of AI for both parties, the patient and the doctor.
Got you. Something related also to design, Mary. Um, so we're talking about, of course, in the background, there's some complex technology. Part of it may be AI. Part of it is automation, as you just mentioned. Um, of course, anyone who, like yourself, work in design, you should put, you know, the user in mind, when designing, the product. But again, sometimes there will be some complexity. So because just back to, for example, to the example of taking the photo and so on. So how, you take, the steps required, I would say, or like what's the formula to keep a balance between ultimate customer experience, like UI UX perspective. I'm a senior citizen, and I need to use this app, I don't know, maybe to do the scanning for the food or something else, but from design, but maybe they have to do it in a certain way, and you need the app also to be so friendly from UI UX perspective, so they don't struggle with it. So how do you balance, my question is, between these complexities from tech perspective and keeping the customer centricity in mind?
Yeah, I would say here we need to keep in mind a few things. First of all, a lot of software is designed for the provider. And when we are speaking about any product, most probably we can safely say that there are two parties, quite often. So the patient, yes, the patient who's interacting with the software, I don't know, sitting in front of computer and doing some, I don't know, consulting. And the doctor is providing the services, who is assessing the data, who's entering the data, who is then working with the inputs, who is analyzing the data from the patient, previous data, like history data, and then making sensitivity. So I think from the standpoint of senior citizens or any sort of user right here, this balance it's pretty simple because when we are designing something to be working, we must usually test it at the very end. So these standards of accessibility, when I'm speaking about senior citizens, they must be passed. So it is like bare minimum. So it must be done. And then on top of that, we are building something that will be working for the user, functionality wise. Or exactly the same story for the providers. Because we also must remember that these people will be interacting with the software, quite possibly, if we're speaking about clinical operations, even more than the patient. Because they come at 8 a.m., they start work, and then they may not finish till 8 p.m., right? So it must be accessible for them as well.
Right. Now, shifting a little bit gears into questions now, but in the world of startups, right? So we talk about going from 0 to 1, right? So, in your opinion and your experience working with multiple startups, um, especially in healthcare industry, we are focusing on the healthcare industry. What it takes, Mary, something to go from 0 to 1? Like, what are like the you know again, the things that the founders need to do, of course, from design perspective, to make sure that they go from 0 to 1?
Yeah, I think it's a very complex question because, like,
Didn't aim to.
yeah, well, 90% of startups will die in every single industry. And I feel like in healthcare, it's even worse because it's significantly more complex in terms of licensing and other issues, right? So many more will die, not just 90%. And you need to be prepared to the fact that many companies will not make it. So if you cannot make it with this specific product in this company, maybe it will happen so that you will need to pivot, launch a new company, and so on. So it is, I would say, quite common for me to meet a serial entrepreneur in healthcare who has many products in healthcare, and they have tried right with different sub niches and so on. So what does it take from design standpoint? I would say it's pretty simple because design for healthcare startups, it must include behavior design as well. So we are understanding how to program the behavior of the user if we are designing for the patient. And for clinical operations, we must understand the clinical operations in the hospital. So that's much more complex system with many stakeholders, insurance as well as usually. So it is normal approach of designer, right? Just given that we also need to know some behavioral design. But what does it make to take your product and start it from 0 to 1? That's a very different question because, yes, we all can create amazing products in healthcare. However, it does not always happen so that we can take them from 0 to 1 and scale it. And a few reasons for that would be partially legal. So licensing in each state, in each country, regulations. Also, obviously, selling the product predominantly to businesses because healthcare is largely covered by businesses. So we are not selling it to the end consumer or cash pay. We're selling it to insurance to be covered, right? Or to corporation for them to include it as a benefit for the employees. So it is a little bit less straightforward path.
Mm-hmm.
And many might think it is less of just launching the product on the market, app store, and then seeing how it goes. Not always like that. Quite often, it's a lot more complex, and you need to be very well integrated in the ecosystem and understand how things are done on the business level.
Right. Now, I know uh, no one can know what's in the future, especially when I'm talking, of course, about the tech and things moving very fast. But again, all of us, we can spot some trends. We can spot, where things are heading. In your opinion, like, what are, of course, AI. I know, like, I'm not asking you about AI because AI is one of the emerging techs in healthcare. But what other things excites you, again, from design perspective? Because we're seeing in recent years a lot of things happen uh, with wearables, with MIoT, and medical Internet of Things. So where do you see things heading, and how do you envision this to be reflected on the patient experience in the near future? I'm not telling you 10 years from now, in the near future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again we need to define the niche because speaking of the provider
Hmm.
perspective, there are many
Right.
many new applications of innovation, like in radiology and so on. That is a huge separate niche. Probably better to avoid it. Speaking of the consumer, I'm certainly excited about mental health aspect of it.
Hmm.
Right now, we are seeing many chatbots, AI powered trained models, and while 5 years ago they were not the best one, let's say, right?
Right.
So they were quite stupid. These days, it's not the case. For example, Replica is one of the biggest AI trends, if you may say so. It is used by 30 million users, and it is practically just a chatbot with the main functionality of supporting you mentally. And there is a very thin line between a therapist and digital chatbot. Realistically, if you train probably this chatbot a little bit better and force it to use therapeutic methods, it will be not very far. The question is that yes, it will not be able to empathize you the way the therapist or friend will, but majority of people will not be able to ever access any mental health services, especially in underserved markets. Like in India, for example, they may have very severe mental health issues or any moderate mental health issues, and then they will never be able to access the services. And with that mobile app, they will be able to do this. And it's already clinically proven that these services, this online AI chatbots, they do decrease. First of all, they help diagnose depression
Hmm.
quite, and a few other mental health issues. So for diagnostics, they are relatively good enough already. For treatment, obviously not as much, but they are moving towards very good state. Right now, they are already decreasing loneliness now, and there are countless studies which prove that they are doing it not worse than a human being, especially when a human does not know who's responding. The moment you tell a human that AI is responding, they'll be like, no, it did not help. But if you lie and say that that was human, they will say, yes, it actually helped a lot. If you say nothing, to make sure that it's like more of a clean experiment, it will still show the improvement. So just knowing that it is a human per se will improve it even further, right? So by and large, they are very helpful already. They will be developing a lot more because Replica is 7 years old and it has improved so much. Probably a matter of another 5 years till AI friends and AI therapists will be replacing a lot of this. And that's not to say that they can, for example, help in some severe cases like suicidal ideation. So they will not be able to, but majority of cases are less severe. And we
Right.
can technically track the changes in depression and other disorders quite easily.
Yeah. It's fascinating now on the point you mentioned about like telling is it AI or not AI. So it's like uh, more than ever the Turing test became again, forefront because of course not people, non-technical people, maybe they don't know what the Turing test is, but it's actually kind of the scenario to guess was it a machine or a human who's answering. And to be frank with you, even from you know a technical experience perspective, sometimes I ask myself, if I ask this question and I got this answer and I didn't know of course that this is chat gpt or like any other tool, would I think this was a real person or a machine? um and it's fascinating really, how all this get shape in the just past couple of years. It's not like so long. And yeah, like it's exciting times, I would say, Mary, indeed. um one you know I'm mixing things, but because I want to get the best, as you're here with me today. um I know you also you have a newsletter where you share some insights. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. So in the newsletter, I'm just doing predominantly deep dives into innovations in healthcare, predominantly applications focused on the patient because clinical apps are almost always hidden. It is a huge secret. You will almost never see any clinical software available anywhere. It's just how the market works. So I'm diving deeper into the behavioral design, why these apps were designed in the way they were designed, and how they managed to keep the users in and coming back again and again and again. So it's quite interesting because if you think of your behavior, practically you can manipulate it in a similar way, right? So app did not invent anything. You are already designed to be human, so you are triggered by this or that. You are triggered by comparison with your friend or your neighbor or your celebrity that you look at every single day. So this mechanism are already inside of you. Whether you're using the app or maybe you will use it just to understand yourself better, it's quite useful just to see what helps people um, become healthier
Right.
and become more motivated in pursuing whatever health goal they have, whether it's community or maybe just setting your goal and then tracking it. Or yeah, some things are more simple, some are more advanced, let's say. Because you mentioned previously the chatbot, and you did not know whether it was a human or not, right? And that now let's imagine it's not chatbot, it's voice.
Mhm.
What would you say then? Because voice is the new medium. Yes, we are used to chatbots, and now we are like not sure. It might be AI. No, I'm cautious. But what about voice? What if it would be copying somebody's voice? And it can copyright now voices very well. So would you then really be able to tell it was not your therapist or your friend? if it copies the voice like 90% for accuracy, yeah, it would be harder till you maybe train yourself to recognize the difference, but still it will be significantly harder.
Right. And on the voice side, also, like it's exciting because, okay, I would not discuss what the bad people can do with cloning and all this, but on the other side, because you mentioned mental health, so just an idea that came to my mind, or a thought, let's say, um, because you can also tell the AI the tone and the way you want it to, you know, uh, transform the text to voice. So you can say, yeah, I want it to be in a calming, relaxing. So think about it like, like as you're speaking to a therapist, and the therapist, he or she, they would be speaking, like slowly, like trying to have this tone of, calming the patient down. So it's really fascinating all what we're seeing. And yeah, to your point, like I'm a believer also, like with the medium of voice, and again, this is my personal point of view. So we're just touching the surface. So plenty of other things that are coming. Maria, what are some of the exciting, maybe upcoming designs that you're currently working on, if any?
Yeah, there are many. I would say my most exciting products that we'll be working on soon will be um, around predictive analytics in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
So predictive analytics in general, it's a very interesting thing. So like I mentioned before, you now have plenty of data. You can analyze it, transform it in a way that is useful for the user, so they can make an informed decision. And a user in our case is a clinician, so a person who works in the hospital. And there are many, many interesting instances how you can use this data. For example, knowing your previous physical health states, we can predict how sick you will be, for example. Or if we discharge you today, since the girl is very sick, so we will just discharge you today, okay? And the system will tell you, can we really discharge you or not really? Because maybe your parameters are not as good, and if you analyze them, the long-term trend will be such that you will come back tomorrow and they will have to again admit you. And that's not what anybody wants, right? So readmissions are not a good thing. So understanding how your previous patterns worked and building a trend based on that, and then giving this clinician one simple answer, obviously backed by the data if they want to know more, is very interesting. Because by and large, the error in clinical settings it's not tiny. Because we are all humans, we get tired, and certainly we make bad decisions sometimes. And one bad decision can impact somebody's health a lot, like for life. And if AI can prevent this one bad decision from happening, that is already a win. Because maybe it will save somebody's life. It's not just like an app, right? So maybe you will not go have your gym session today, or you will have it tomorrow. It's not a big deal, right? But in
Mm-hmm.
clinical setting, a lot is at stake. Somebody's lives are at stakes, especially in acute settings. So helping a clinician is on the one hand a big responsibility. So you're not giving them the data that will harm the patient because it was interpreted not in the right way. But at the same time, it will likely speed up the process, and possibly, and quite often it is already proved, yes, it does help clinician to make a better decision because they cannot assess all of the data manually, but system can. The
Mm-hmm.
system is a lot more precise. A system can do it much, much faster, and it's never tired. Certainly, there are biases and there are many, many other things that we need to keep in mind while providing this, but still, it has such a huge potential in very low settings, like clinical settings, that I think, regardless of all of the issues, the benefits are just outweighing them 10 times.
Absolutely. Um, Mary, like really, I enjoyed the conversation with you today. Plenty of, thought-provoking things you mentioned also as well. And, I like impact, honestly. And this is when I speak to, every guest I speak who's coming either from healthcare background or working on healthcare products or in healthcare software, whatever. I get a little bit emotional because this is touches people's lives at the end of the day. So it's something close to my heart. So, and thank you for sharing, your knowledge with us. Um, Final words you want to share with the audience and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can get in touch with me via LinkedIn, most probably. And yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. It was such a pleasure for me to talk about the matter that is indeed close to my heart as well, because it does touch all of us, 100% of us. Whether you are poor or rich, regardless of your location, you will touch the system. You want it or not, just a matter of time, maybe just a matter of how frequently you will have to. But by and large, it will touch all of us. That's why it makes it so interesting, exciting to learn, and exciting to innovate in. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. If you have any ideas or anything, just drop me a line in LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to be in touch.
Great. Again, thank you very much, Mary, for being here with me today. I will keep some links for the audience, so if just in case they want to get in touch, and also for the newsletter as well, if they want to subscribe and check it. Um, and as I said, like, thank you very much for being here with me today. Now, this is for the audience. If you are new to this show, new to this podcast, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed. If you did so, please give us a thumb up, share it with your friends and colleagues. We're trying to create this community of knowledge, inspiration, ideas across anywhere in the world, within the founders and the tech enthusiasts as well. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming, the followers, and the people who keep encouraging me, thank you for all your support. I really appreciate it. And as I say always, thank you very much for tuning in here today. We will be again very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.